This lecture's goal is to come up with a structure for what I believe is that the sun will tell us why we exist. There's a few things we don't know how to deal with. The subject, what I believe, that the sun will tell us why we exist. We have some sort of subordinator going on, a new clause. And then why we exist is also something interesting we'll have to investigate. So we're going to deal with the that first. And that comes from a thing called a noun clause, an NCL. An example being, I know that Tim is leaving for New York. So it's just introducing a new sentence. So what noun clauses do, what our NCLs do, is they fill positions of NP, so noun phrases. And they answer the same questions that WH questions do for noun phrases. So what did Stephen like? You could say Stephen liked this. This is a noun phrase. Or you can say Stephen liked that Jimmy Buffett was playing here. So Stephen liked that some sentence occurred. So this would be an example of a noun clause. Or Stephen liked what the concert did for all of us here. If it starts with the WH word and behaves similarly, it's called a WH clause. So for noun clauses, NCLs, they're introduced by these things called complementizers, which we label as C, and there's three words that do this, which is that, whether, or if. So they don't have a function in the clause, they just are there to make it grammatical. So that children can run freely in the streets makes me happy. I am happy whether children can freely run in the streets or not. Sometimes the whether comes with an or not. With WH clauses, so we call these WHCLs, these are introduced by WH subordinators, which we call WH subs. These are pronouns, and these are who, when, where, how, why. So also the word what could be there too, or who. So they have a function. They take on some sort of direct object or subject or some position. There's movement happening within these clauses. So where I'm going is none of your concern. I'm not going to tell you what I'm eating. So we can see here where I'm going is a subject in this case, and it's a clause. I am going, it's a full statement, but it's being introduced by this subordinator where. So this would be an example of a WH clause acting as a subject. So these are the two types of noun clauses that we're going to investigate in more detail in this section, and then that'll be the entire course. You've understood English grammar. I want to show you some examples of noun clauses and the functions they can have. So this will be quick, but we can take a look at this. So first of all, we can have predicate nominals. So we can say the truth is this, or the truth is that pigs really can fly. So we have a complementizer introducing another sentence, pigs really can fly. They could be subjects, this is crazy, or that he can perform real magic is crazy. So he can perform real magic is a sentence, and that is a complementizer that's introducing it, and that whole thing is a subject. That's not really something that we say out loud that often, but it's more something you would see written in fiction. They can be direct objects. I knew it. I knew that he was pulling my leg. So he was pulling my leg is a sentence, complementizer that, introducing it. We also have complement functions, so we don't have an actual label for a function, but these are complements. So they can describe nouns or they can describe adjectives. The fact that he always lied has everyone concerned, or I am sure that things will get better. So you can tell these are different from relative clauses because you have an entire sentence. So that he always lied. The fact that he always lied. It's not the fact who the fact that always lied would be a little bit different. We have the fact that he always lied. So these are the different types of functions that noun clauses can take, and we're going to see very similar things for WH clauses as well. Let's take a look at the internal structure of our noun clauses. So that he can perform real magic is crazy. So a noun clause is now going to be our subject. It's going to be headed by the complementizer that, and it's going to take a sentence underneath, and the sentence is just going to look like a standard sentence you've seen before. There's nothing fancy going on, there's no movement occurring, nothing is happening that is weird inside this sentence. You're literally just introducing another independent clause under a noun clause. So these are how all of our NCOs are going to look. So in the second example, I knew that he was pulling my leg. So we have a noun clause direct object, but if we take a look inside this noun clause after the complementizer, we just see a regular old sentence. He was pulling my leg. Nothing fancy, no movement. So, to make sure we have an understanding of word categories, let's take a look at a bunch of these different types of that's and try to determine their category. So pause the video, try it yourself. Now let's go over some solutions. So that car is not mine. That car. This is acting as a demonstrative and it is a determiner in this case. I'm talking about a specific car. That was an amazing experience. So we're talking about something specific, some event that is being replaced with the word that. So this is a pronoun. I have never seen a place that beautiful. This is answering the question, how beautiful? Oh, it's that beautiful. So this is a qualifier. I bet you weren't expecting that when you were coming into this video. Okay, the man that I talked to is my dad. So this is a relative clause in this case. So this is going to be a relative pronoun that. I know that he is tired. So this is introducing a noun clause direct object. So this is just a complementizer. This is C. Okay. That movie is boring. I'm talking about a specific movie here. So this is a demonstrative determiner. He is always late. That is irresponsible. Okay, so we're talking about the fact that he is always late. So this is acting as a personal pronoun in this case because that is referring to the fact that he's always late. Okay, movies that make money at the box office are usually not psychological dramas. So this is a relative clause. So we're looking at a relative pronoun in number 8. I know that my parents always support me. So that my parents always support me. We see a sentence, my parents always support me. So that is a complementizer introducing my parents always support me. And then that my parents always support me helps me a lot. So now this is just acting as a subject. So my parents always support me. That helps me a lot. So this is a complementizer introducing the rest of the sentence, and the whole thing is a noun clause subject. Hopefully that wasn't too bad. Now let's see if we can distinguish between relative clauses and noun clauses just to make sure. So most people like the fact that the school now has a cafeteria. To see if it's a noun clause, I'm just looking to see if everything after that forms a complete sentence. The school now has a cafeteria. It does? Okay, therefore that's a complementizer. And here we have a noun clause. And this is describing fact, so we're not going to give it a function. Okay, the fact that most people like is that the school now has a cafeteria. Let's try that same test. Everything after that, most people like. Well, most people like what? That doesn't make any sense to me. That sounds ungrammatical. Okay, so what that indicates to me here is that this is a relative pronoun. In fact, I see the site where it's coming. It's coming from after like. Most people like something. Therefore, this is going to be a relative clause, and all of our relative clauses are modifiers. Okay, the fact that most people like is that the school now has a cafeteria. So what I see here, same test, do this. Okay, the school now has a cafeteria. Great. So that's complementizer. This is an NCL, and this is coming after a be verb, which means this is going to be acting as a predicate nominal in this case. That's the trick to distinguishing between noun clauses and relative clauses. If you grab that trick, then you cannot be fooled. Much like with relative clauses and with questions, special things happen when subjects occur as noun clauses. So, if you have a noun clause subject, you cannot delete the word that at the beginning. But if you have a noun clause in any other position, you can delete the complementizer that. So we don't need to say, I know that the party starts at 7, because this is a noun clause direct object. We can just eliminate that. But that he will be late is obvious. We have a noun clause subject in this case, so we need that. And this is good for the brain because it's saying, hold on a second, I'm using a sentence as a subject. So when I say he will be late, you don't think that's the complete thought. Okay, some dealer that the kids knew is in is in jail. So this is a noun clause describing the dealer. Sorry, some dealer that the kids knew. This is just a relative clause. So this can be deleted too. We can see some parallels between the noun clause and the relative clause. What is the relative clause doing in there? It's sneaky. So in terms of our actual diagram, nothing else is going to change. It's going to be just like the relative pronouns. If we don't pronounce it, we just put a cross through it. It's still there. It's just not pronounced. So that's how we can do complementizer deletion in noun clauses. There's two other types of complementizers we haven't seen yet. One is if, so this is a C. So this introduces a noun clause and usually has some sort of situation or hypothetical. They're often direct objects. So they want to know if you are leaving soon. So like, is this event going to happen or not? They want to know that. So that's why we use if. It's a little weird as a subject. I've heard people say things like this before, but it's awkward. If you can behave tonight is something I'm not too sure about. Uh, Usually what you'd say instead is whether. So you wouldn't normally use if in a subject position, normally just the direct object or potentially even indirect object position. But that's, no, indirect object doesn't quite make sense. It's best as a direct object. So those are if noun clauses, but we also have whether noun clauses. So these paraphrase noun clauses as yes, no questions. So if you say they want to know whether you are leaving soon, you can think of it more like a colon. So they want to know colon, and then you can do some indicative movement back to the base form. They want to know, are you leaving soon? So they want to know whether you are leaving soon. They want to know, are you leaving soon? But what you might notice is interesting about this is, hold on a second, we have a weather clause, and then it's kind of like a question, but we don't have any movement here. So, nothing special is happening. There's no movement happening inside these clauses. We only have movement when we remove the whether and we phrase it as a sentence coming with a question after. And like I said before, sometimes you get this or not coming with it. It's either going to tag right beside the whether, or it's going to tag at the end, and everything else is going to be in between. So this is the structure so far. What I believe is that the sun will tell us why we exist. Our new information is that the sun will tell us why I exist is a noun clause, and that is going to be a complementizer introducing it.